Hello, this is Ken Ferrie with this week's Boots in the Field report. Last week was a busy week in many areas. Herbicides going on, tillage getting done, and a lot of soybeans got planted. Most areas have picked up some rain. Most of these areas not as high as what was predicted, but we're going to take anything we can get. That was some wild weather last week. We even went into our storm shelter here at Crop Tech for a little bit while funnel cloud passed by. Our prayers go out to all those that are affected by the storms and hope for a speedy recovery. This rain will alleviate some potential issues out there. In many cases, we've got enough, I think, to tame down the anhydrous core. It'll also help equalize out the spring chiseled ground, get that moisture leveled out. This water is going to help activate the soil-applied herbicides that are already on. Now, while the recent rains haven't done much to change the drought monitor map, it'll move us in the right direction. If you're looking at the drought monitor map and compare it to a year ago, basically Minnesota, Illinois, and Missouri are drier than we were last year, while Iowa actually looks like it's in better shape than it was a year ago. The guys in Iowa and southern Minnesota know how fast that can change after last spring. At this point, if we don't see improvement, I recommend in the dry areas to go to kind of a water conservation mode. Don't let any more water go than you must. The way the winds want to blow, losing surface moisture is so easy. If the field is level and the planter is set up for no-till, this may be the year to leave the cultivators, high-speed disc, and vertical harrows in the shed and just go plant. Now, the areas that got hard driving rains, this could create some problems or challenges for our early planted beans. We'll need to be on the watch for surface crusting. Our biggest threat will come in those tilled fields where the soil can run together faster. When we plant early beans, we need to take precautions like seed treatments to keep them safe while they spend weeks in the ground. And we also need to protect them from surface crust that might form before they make it to the surface. So how do we protect them from a surface crust? Well, we need to be scouting and watching for that crust building. If it starts to build, we need to bring out the hose and break the crust. And for you younger listeners out there, I'm talking about a rotary hoe. So Dad and Grandpa have cut it up and got rid of it a long time ago. You may have to Google it to see what one looks like. We break the crust as it starts to build long before the bean is pushing on the crust to get out. In many cases, it's only going to be the timber soils or silt loams that normally form a crust after heavy rains. If I ask most growers, can they point out in the field where they're going to have emergence issues behind heavy rains, they can tell you. These are spots that need to be watched because they have a history of crusting over. As that crust forms, take a proactive approach and go break the crust. Even if the beans are still an inch from the surface, crack the crust when it's crackable. Don't wait 3 weeks when a lot of other things are vying for your time and the beans are pushing hard and getting brittle against that crust. Growers who know we hoe before we know understand the power of a hoe has to keep stands strong in these early planted beans. Growers who wait to hoe till the beans are in trouble and they can see it from the road are usually frustrated with the hoeing process. So in doubt, just go hoe. Starting to get seed sample results coming back in. The results have both good and concerning numbers showing up. Now, we only have about 50 samples back so far. When we compare these 50 samples to last year's 150 samples, some numbers look similar. When we look at accelerated aging scores, the average in 2024 was 89%. In 2025, so far, the average accelerated aging score is also 89%. We consider a score below 75% to be a failing number when we talk about accelerated aging. Last year, 11% of the samples failed the test. This year, so far, it's only 2%. Last year, the average saturated cold score was 79%. This year, so far, it's 83.6. We would consider a cold sat score below 60% to be a failing score. Last year, 5% of the samples failed the saturated score. To date, in 2025, only 2% have failed. Now, when it comes to pericarp damage, we watch for seeds with severe pericarp damage. Any cracks in the pericarp will show up on this test, but cracks in the embryo axis, that little indent in the seed, they're considered severe damage. The concern here is getting salt burn from your starter fertilizer that is going in the furrow. With cracks in the embryo axis, it allows salt to get in to the germ, stopping germination. If severe pericarp damage gets above 6%, we recommend not applying starter in furrow. While you'll get the visual starter response, the odds of losing the severe pericarp damaged plants to saltburn are high, which will lower your ear count beyond what the starter response can make up. In 2024, the average severe pericarp damage on about 150 samples was 3%. So far this year, it's at 5.8%. Last year, 10% of the samples failed with a score higher than 6%. This year so far, we're at 25% that have failed. I don't have any good answers as far as why this has taken place. Severe pericarp scores in this year's samples so far have ranged from 1% up to 30%. Now, you can plant seeds with 30% severe pericarp damage if the other numbers are good and you're not putting fertility in the furrow. Now, fertility off the seed is not a problem. I'm not concerned, for instance, with 2x2 or the 360 wave or the huck step shoe. With the furrow jet, I would shut off the in-furrow line and send it all to the wings. Now, I hope this improves as the rest of the samples start coming in. We have over 70 samples at the lab and more going in, so maybe these numbers will turn around, but I thought I'd give you an update on what we're seeing right now. Another note, we had some operations send in samples from carryover seed. Some that was purchased at a big discount and others not wanting to throw away a $300 bag of seed that was left over in the back of the shed. These samples are wild, and I'm not sure I've ever seen samples this rough. Now, these samples are not included in the earlier numbers that I gave you, but the average accelerated score for 4 different lots was 6%. Yes, 6%, a long way from the 75% needed to pass. The average saturated score was 11%, where 60% again is needed to pass. The high saturated score tested was 23%, with the low being 0. And that's right, 0. No seeds passed in that sample. I don't think we have ever had a 0 sample before. Now, the good news is these guys tested it before planting, stopping a total train wreck. The best place for this stuff may be in a corn stove. Now, guys, I know margins are tight and cheap seed is enticing, but don't shoot yourself in the foot before we start. Soil testing crews are hard at spring testing. We've wrapped up the yield map meetings. The office crew is working on the maps for the soil testers and getting the data compiled for the high-res growers. If you haven't turned in your soil testing order or your high-res orders, let's get that done before we get too busy. The plot crew is getting closer and closer to the starting line with some of our early beans already planted. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.